Yo guys, it's me Matrix here, coach of the Welsh Wailords. We are back at it with Season 4 of the WDC Draft League. That's right, that is the Wailords Draft Community, hosted by yours one and only, yours truly. Now, it's been a moment since I've partook in one of my own seasons. I've ran 2 seasons since the inaugural season. Season 1 we partook in, we got up all the way to finals and sadly took a loss to Lucian. Lucian took the win in Season 1, and aside from some shorter draft tours here and there, I haven't really partaken in my own league's draft. Season 2 was won by, I believe, Batista, and then Season 3, which was our up-and-coming draft league type thing, the Rising Tides, as it were, those players looking for their first entry into a draft Hall of Fame, and that was won by a replacement coach, Tyler Michael, or Weiler Michael, and the Womerville Waggies, as he tried to pass off as. But yeah, we're back, Season 4. This should be a bit of fun. It's been a while, and yeah, I got a really cool team to share with you guys. I'll try not to take too long on this. I mean, this is literally done in one take, so we'll get going. So yeah, let's begin, shall we? So, the format for the draft is you have the standard tiers, and then you have points to choose your remaining picks from. So everyone drafts an S, 2 A's, 2 B's, a C, and a D, and then you got 140 points to spend on picking 4 of a Pokemon. So an S tier is 70, and then A through E tier is 50 through 10 points. Let's just get on with our very first pick, shall we? I should probably say this is a doubles draft league, if that wasn't already apparent. Familiar people to the channel know that is what I do. I do doubles draft. I sometimes partake in some singles draft, but this is just regular, standard VGC draft league material, 4v4, and I believe we've got the regulation as Regulation H with a few custom bands, and those custom bands are Commander Tatsugiri, Archaludon, and both Ursaluna forms. Trying something different this season. We were all a little bit tired of seeing the same mons used over and over again. Like, who can be bothered with 2 of the top 4 teams being Ursaluna based, and you've got Archaludon, a really strong mon in the metagame right now, and do we really need another season of Tatsudozo, or not really, Dumdozo as I call it. So yeah, let's hop straight in. So we were actually first, the rigged allegations will persist, but we were in fact first pick overall in the snake style draft, and so 1 through 12 pick, and then 12 back up through 1 pick, and yeah, with it being the first pick overall, I went for a comfort pick. As you can see here, our first S tier, and it is green. That is right, green for Rillaboom. Something you'll notice is that every single one of my Pokemon is a different colour, partially intentional. I wanted to try and diversify the colours as much as possible with this draft. It was kind of like a little fun side challenge to it, make it a little bit more interesting, a bit more colourful, instead of the normal boring like drab colours of like certain modes. I think that's something you'll find out with my team, is that it's not very mode heavy. It's a lot of like decently statted mons and like role fillers rather than inherent synergistic combinations. Spoiler for the rest of the draft, I don't pick up an Unburden mon to pair with Rillaboom's grassy terrain, so yeah, that's kind of what we're going with. So yeah, we got Rillaboom, grass type. It's got overgrown grassy surge, really good. You can see its stat distribution there. More of a physical attacker, quite physically bulky, middling speed. It's very good for like fake out, pressure, support sets with not everyone's first thought, but like it gets Snarl. That was my first thought then, but it also gets the typical supports like knockoff, U-turn, its signature move, which is drum beating, which also lowers stats, speed stat of the opposing Pokemon. But it's such a strong physical attacker with Wood Hammer, Grassy Glide. I don't really need to go on about how good Rillaboom can be, although I do believe it's better in from a prep standpoint. Like when you can prep for a mon like Rillaboom, it's not as threatening. When you can tailor your team against it, but what it does is it commands a lot of respect from your opponent to prep against it, because Rillaboom left unchecked can really take away a game, like run away with it. Those Wood Hammers are really good. Grassy Glides gives you priority. Obviously Grassy Glide isn't as strong as it used to be, but still pretty strong. What I should note as well is that this format is Terra Sheet open. And what that means is that before every match, you exchange your Terra team sheets with your opposing player, and yeah, otherwise Pokemon are free to Terra into whatever types they want. Like each week, every Pokemon can Terra into any type, and the only caveat is that you have to share that information right before the match, so your opponent knows what Terra types that your Pokemon are. I'm not going to go into the whole which is better thing, but I feel like this is quite a nice middle ground between full unchecked Terra rules and like Terra captains. So yeah, not much more to say really about Rillaboom. Really solid first pick. I thought it was really cool. It's a very familiar pick as well. Like, I've used Rillaboom a lot. In lots of different ways. Hopefully we can get some mileage out of it this season. Last few times I've drafted it haven't been overly impactful. It's definitely fell off a little bit in the draft for me since we moved on to Gen 9, but hopefully we can get some mileage, as I say, out of it. So yeah, that's Rillaboom, first Pokemon added to our team. Next we will move along to the purple Pokemon. And Mr. Purple over here, or as I like to call it, Casper the Friendly Ghost, is Gengar. Now, I didn't actually draft Gengar to like round 4, I think it is, maybe round 5. I was very much between which ghost type I wanted. I was very much like, do I go Zoroark Hisui? Do I go Gengar? Like, in all measurable statistics or qualities, Zoroark Hisui is the better mon. They're both in B tier. Like, yes, you can see the stat spread there. Gengar's very fast, very specially offensive, hits hard, and harder than Zoroark, but I think it's actually the same. Maybe say for 5 base stats, I think it's 130 for Gengar to 125 for Zoro. Both have the same speed. Gengar's actually, funny enough, slightly bulkier than Zoro, but when you're dealing with 6Es, it's not really that big of a deal. But where the big difference comes in is the move pool, the type, and the ability. Like, Ghost Poison isn't a bad type by any means, but it's definitely not Ghost Normal, which Zoroark is amazing as, and Illusion. Really fantastic ability versus Cursed Body. So, with it being still on the board, you might be thinking, well, why didn't you just go for Zoroark? I'm saying so much about Zoroark. Well, that's because I've done a lot of games recently and a lot of seasons where I have used Zoroark Hisui, and I've always meant to use Gengar and just always gone for the other option. So this time I thought, you know what, no, I'm gonna go for the Gengar. I'm gonna at least give it a go and see what we can do with it. I really like Gengar as a mon, and it's definitely not the strongest ghost type in the world in terms of what it can do, but like, it does have a deep ability of what it can do. However, not a very good ability, mind, Cursed Body. Such a shame since it lost Levitate back in Gen 6, I think it was, or Gen 7. whenever it happened. But yeah, great coverage, really strong special attacker, complements the strong physical attacker I've already drafted, the Rillaboom, and the type synergies isn't too bad. It's like, I get my ghost type at least. A poison offensive is always really nice, especially to pressure fairy types. So that's something to look for, and it's got Gen 1 move coverage, which means it's got all the Thunderbolts. It's got the Thunderbolt. It's actually got Dazzling Gleam from Gen 6. It's got some weird moves like Sucker Punch and the Elemental Punches. Icy Wind for speed control. It's got Trick Room. It's got Perish Song. It's got Encore. It's pretty techy, which is nice. It means it doesn't always have to be like running 3 attacks and protect. It's very much a sash hog, I guess, but yeah, pretty offensive, and that's kind of what I wanted, was an offensive special attacker, so that's where we got. And that's Gengar added to the team. Next along the lines, we can have a look at the yellow, Mr. Yellow. Now, we weren't quite done with special attackers, but we wanted even more speed, and that is why we picked up another favourite of mine, Jolteon. Now, I've used Jolteon a lot. I haven't used it this generation. I used it last generation a lot. I think it's really cool to use it this gen. Like, Volt Absorb gives you that electric immunity whilst also being able to tear it into maybe water or flying. Jolteon's probably at its strongest, ironically, because of it's got such a deeper move pool this gen, with Alluring Voice being added to its move pool, that giving that fairy coverage is so invaluable. You've also got the return of Weather Ball back to its kit, and moves like Shadow Ball. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head, but it gets moves like Calm Mind now, so it can set up. It's got all the electric moves. It's even got Electro Web, which is a really nice speed control option as a supporter. As you can see here, its speed is out the roof. Like 130 is really nice to just get that 130 speed to its special attack is 110, its special defense is 95, and then you've got 65 in HP in defense and 60 in defense, 65 in attack. Yeah, the evolutions pretty easy to remember their stat spreads. Quick Feet is another cool ability. Like, it allows me to get, for the price of like my item and that, if I wanted to run a Toxic or Flame Orb strategy, I could get Quick Feet boost. Increasing my speed by 1.5, which can be useful against certain like really fast modes like weather and that. So not completely useless, although Volt Absorb I would say is the better ability, especially with Terra. It's another offensive special attacker, but in a vein that's different to Gengar. The only thing I will say is that it's a little bit similar because of the weakness that they both share is ground. So having 2 of my fastest mons weak to ground isn't amazing. However, at least Rillaboom, that provides ground defensive utility, with it being able to set Grassy Surge and set Grassy Terrain, which mitigates some of the damage from Earthquake and Bulldoze, which is at least something. But even in itself, Rillaboom provides us a good switch in for these 2 mons. Yeah, like, not much more I can say about the Jolteon. It gets some really fast support moves as well. It gets Charm. I'm not sure if it gets Eerie Impulse, sadly, but it gets a few other things like Fate Tears and that. So really good supporter, whilst also having decent offensive capabilities itself. Moving on from Mr. Yellow, Jolteon, or Zip Zap Zop as I like to call him, we move now to a grey Pokemon. And I was looking at some of the other A tiers, and I was thinking, you know what I could really do with is, I think I misspoke earlier actually. I think I said Gengar was B tier. I think it's actually A tier. That's my mistake. So going back to this Pokemon, I really wanted something with stats. Like, what mon could I get in this tier for decent statage? And, well, you don't really get better than Pseudos. So we went for a Pseudo Legendary Comet Auto. Very much a Terra hog in my opinion, because of Terra, your opponent is very likely to be packing a Fairy Terra somewhere. And if they Fairy Terra, they probably have Fairy Coverage or Fairy Terra Blast. And so Calm is kind of pressured in this point where you either remove the fairies which is why Gengar is a really good pick over Zoroark as well, because it gets that stab poison coverage. Or you go for Terry yourself. And like Com has such really good stacked distribution in the fact that it's just high in across all. It doesn't shine anywhere, don't get me wrong. Like it's got a low HP, but then it's got like 120 special, 120 physical, 100 special, or something like that, or maybe it's 110 physical, 120 defense, and then 105 I think it is in its special defense. Decent speed, very middling, but it's okay. It can do a lot of things. It's just usually better off suited for being like this really supportive attacker. Um, it definitely gives me like decent SpDef and stuff, which is what I didn't already have. And it like you throw into the mix some of its abilities. Like a lot of mons like to use hyper voice and stuff, so soundproof's really good. It's also good with bulletproof, having an immunity to like sludge bomb for Rillaboom, and then like energy ball for a water type Pokemon, and like it does stack up the amount of moves it can be immune to, which is really cool. And then it's got Overcoat as well, which is very good for like the Rage Powder matches that you end up facing off against. It's got really good sound moves in it of itself. Boom Burst next to Gengar can be pretty good. The Clangorous Soul, I think it's called. So pair that with some Fake Out and that Rillaboom provides, and you've got a good, decent way to get it set up. Yeah, like fighting, this gives me a fighting type. I like having a fighting type that's just got big damage off it, even though it's not going to be the fastest of fighting types. Like it's still base 120 close combats. It can also go for Aura Sphere Vacuum Waves. You can go for Draco. You can go Breaking Swipe or Scale Shot. And that's just talking its stab moves and its coverage. It's got other coverage elsewhere, such as Iron Head, Poison Jab, and those type of moves. Really good. So yeah, that's Como-O. Never used it before. I thought it'd be cool to try out a new pseudo as well. That's another reason why I wanted it. I wanted to try and mix familiarity with new. So you'll see that is a recurrent theme within the draft. Moving on from Como-O, we decided to go with a support Pokemon. This little pink thing is a new Pokemon that was introduced this generation. And as I say, talking about like so far I've got these two special attackers, this really strong physical attacker, and then this like bulky all-rounder. And I hadn't really gotten much in the terms of support, and I felt like Rillaboom was going to be too pressured to always go for like Fake Out and stuff. And so we ended up getting a Fairy and Steel type all in one. This completes our Fantasy Core with Como-O. And Moldbreaker Tinkerton, pretty decent, honestly. Like, it's got a very high SpDef, which is really nice because I'm planning to pair it with something I'm getting on later on in the draft. Decent speed, honestly. Like 94, I want to say its speed is, which is like just below 95, 96, which is a shame, but like it's still good. Its attack is a little bit lackluster, it's 75, and special attack's like 70. It's not the best offensively, but like it's got enough supporting tech, and like moves like Gigaton Hammer, if you can find a matchup where there's like a steel neutral, or like they're not like heavy on the steel resists, then Gigaton Hammer just kind of slaps things around. Moldbreaker is very good for like Fake Out. It can like Fake Out mons like Farigiraf and the Fish, Bruxish, and Serena. It's also good for like hitting through immunities. So like if I got Terra Blast, Terra Water, I can go past Storm Drain, and ground moves past Levitate, Thunder Waves, Volt Absorb mons. Like there's so much more it can do as well. It's also decent because it's got dual screens with its speed stat is really good, and obviously it's got the utility moves like Knock Off and I think Skitter Smack actually, which is really cool. One of the things I hate about Tinkerton though in particular is that what bothers me about it is that it's got this lore that Tinkerton, it's the Corviknight Slayer, its hammer's made out of Corviknight it's slain, but yet in game, it literally can't do anything against the Corviknight, like at all. It's kind of a joke how bad that is. I mean, it does get access to other things like Thunder Wave as well, which is cool. I think it gets Fate Tears as well as Charm, so like a really good stat support spread there. Bulldoze obviously, which is nice, so it can always Mold Breaker into like clear body mons as well. That's really cool. It can crit shell armor mons. I've had that happen to me before from a Tinkerton. So yeah, honestly, really cool. And like its other two abilities aren't too bad either. Like Own Tempo gives me a way to stop Intimidate from ruining my attack stat even more, whilst preventing confusion from like hurricanes. And then there's Pickpocket, which although not it by itself isn't the worst ability in the world, it's definitely not going to be picked as much over the other two here. Unless I absolutely do not need the other two abilities, and I'm running an itemless or a Tinkerton that consumes this item. But yeah, really good overall. I was really glad to get the Tinkerton, really glad to get the Fairy and Steel type out of the way, because I was really trying to diversify these types across the team, and as you can see, like they're all filling their own specific roles. There's a bit of overlap between Gengar and Jolteon, as I said earlier, but not too bad. So, staying on the support train, for a while, I was looking at like Gyarados as like my water type, and then that got sniped somewhere around like I want to say round 6, and like the whole chain of just like water and ground types just went. I still hadn't got my water or my ground type, so we had to pivot mid-draft about what my plan was going to be. And I realised that instead of taking an offensive A tier, I've already got Gengar, Kommo-o, Rillaboom, another potential S tier. Jolteon's really good for its tier as well. Like, why not try and solve something that my team clearly had an issue with? And that is just general support and control. Like, board state control. So, we picked up a Lumise. I've used Volbeat before. And so, our Violet Pokemon is... I think it's Violet, yeah, Violet, is Illumise. And not because of Oblivious, not because of Tinted Lens, Prankster. I mean, look at those stats. Those stats are right down there. Like, stupidly down there. It's at least okay in its bulk, like, not terrible. Like, when you're only investing in its bulk, it does stay around longer than you'd think. But... it's that Prankster Tailwind, that Prankster Weather setup, that Prankster Light Screen, Encore, supporting Struggle Bug Stab, and like, it's able to do a lot. I've seen Illumises get other teams to like finals and stuff just by purely supporting a really strong offensive mon on the team, and like, I would typically prefer to have a strong spread move attacker next to Illumise, because you're obviously doing Prankster Tailwind, Prankster Fate Tears, and so it's a really good to start like snowballing, even though it itself isn't putting a load of damage potential on the board or damage pressure. It pressures the team in another way that they have to respect. But it still pairs well with, like, I've got the Jolteon, does have like Discharge and Thunderbolt and stuff, which does good damage. It also has like Prankster Rain if you want to go Thunder. You've got Prankster Sun if I want to do Solar Blade Rillaboom. I'm very unlikely to do that, but it's still a cool little combo. And then obviously it pairs nicely with the Gengar. Like, you can go Terra Steel Illumise and get that Sludge Wave damage off next to Gengar, which is really cool. Similar stuff has happened with like Zoroarks and stuff, so just without that illusion benefit. But yeah, like, it's a typical Prankstermon, a little bit pricey, but that's okay because we save points elsewhere, in my opinion. Like, we find steals in other tiers, and I really do appreciate the speed control that this gives me. I was really struggling to find good speed control before I realised this. So yeah, that's the Illumise. And now we go on to our first E tier. Now, as I was saying before, ground types were getting sparse, and there was a Pokemon in E tier that was taken, which kind of made me take this mon earlier than you'd think you'd need to. And it's because there's not many good E tiers. and so I made sure to get my ground type. Golem. Yes, Golem. I think this is like our 4th Kanto Pokemon up to this point. Like, it's not a good mon. Don't get me wrong. In doubles, it's not a good mon. But that being said, it's still one of the better mons in the tier. It's still got an ability sturdy, so it's always going to be able to take 2 hits. That's okay. Like, you can see its defenses are good, its offenses isn't bad. Like, 120 attack isn't bad by any means, but like, it's very much handable. It's very much easy to handle. Handable. Yeah, that's a mouthful. Special defense ain't great either. Like, Golem is literally Rhyperior, but the Wish version. Like, Rhyperior isn't great itself, but it's very good in a Terra format thanks to its ability Solid Rock. But its attack is better, its defense is better, its HP is better. Special bulk is lower, but its HP is better, so its special bulk is better overall. I think it's slower than Golem. It's just, yeah, Golem's very middling. I'm not going to spend too long on it. It can do things, wide guard, it's got like rock slide and the typical things. I think I'm just telling you all what you already know at this point. But the other side of it is like it can do stuff like Custap Explosion and things, so it's not completely useless by any means. I'm really hoping I can get a couple good games out of it. I really wanted one of the Golems from the start, like whether it be a Alolan or Cantonian, but Alolan Golem went pretty early, like way earlier than you would anticipate it going, and so I was like, okay, I need to get this now before it goes. Plus, I felt relatively safe in my remaining picks that people weren't going to go for them. And it's at this point I decided, okay, I need to get my water type. I still am not fully convinced by this, but because of a few things here and there, I decided not to go for Greninja up in A tier for Lumise, and I still needed a Dark type. I ended up going for Crawdon. Now, I was kind of convinced of Crawdon, even though I have something telling me inside that it's not the best pick. And it's because I'm starting to see that I've either got bulky mons that don't do damage, or I've got glass cannons. And Crawdon kind of falls into that glass cannon. Like, its defense is okay. I think it's like 80, with its HP being like, I want to say 60, maybe 70. But like, its special defense is pretty low, and it's not exactly a fast mon at 55. It's got good ability, very good ability. It's like Hyper Cutter means I can't be intimidated. It means great for like an Assault Vest Crawdon set or something along those lines. Shell Armor, I'm never going to go for a bulky set, doesn't matter to me. But obviously there's adaptability, and this is really good because Crawdon can be a physical or a special attacker pretty easily, in my opinion. Like 120 attack is great, especially with adaptability. You're hitting so hard. But then on the same vein, you've got special Crawdon, which is actually viable thanks to adaptability. 90 special attack is pretty good, and it's got a very good like move pool as well. You can go for an assault vesting, snarl spamming Crawdon that has Aqua Jet, and it's still going to be putting out damage no matter what. But you can also do like Dark Pulse, Sludge Bomb, Hydro Pump, Muddy Water. Like it's got a move pool that's usable, and its physical move pool is pretty good as well. Don't ask me right now what it is, other than the obvious like Crab Hammer, Liquidations, Knockoffs, Night Slashes, X-Scissor I'm pretty sure it gets, and another bug move that escapes me, which is good. Like, don't get me wrong, it allows it to be able to hit the grass types that would usually resist it, and I'm pretty sure it gets some good fighting coverage as well, possibly even close combat, so it's got answers for like those steals as well. But yeah, Crawdon, I'm still undecided if it was the right pick. Water and Dark, I do need a Dark. I just felt like a Dark should be bulky, and this isn't that, or bulky or fast, and this is neither, so it's a little bit on the weaker side in that regard. The other water type options, which are still on the table right now and are still possible to get, are Samurott, Unova, and Feraligatr. And depending on how things go, I might end up looking to rejig it to get those two mons, one of those two mons. Like, that's in the same tier. Ideally, like, there's a Blastoise in the tier above, and like Blastoise is really cool. I really like Blastoise, but I just can't rejig it anyway to get it. So, not about losing or sacrificing elsewhere, and then I still lose a Dark type if I did all this anyway. So, yeah. So we move on from the Crawdaunt now. And we're coming towards the end now. We've already got a big S tier to get, and then our E and our D tier. And, well, we're not going to go straight down to our S just yet. No. We are actually going to get our D tier. And I actually kind of rate this mon. Like, it's actually really cool. Like, I needed a Psychic type. I needed a way to, like, reverse Trick Room and stuff. And so I thought, why not just get Chimecho? And it gives me Levitate, which is really nice down in that tier, which I kind of appreciate considering I've got a couple decent ground weaknesses on my team that Rillaboom can't always cover for by itself. Now, yeah, okay, it means that I'm either ground or bug weak, which is an interesting combination, but like, it's one of them. So yeah, Chimecho gets Trick Room. Its bulk is passable. Like, it's not amazing, but it's passable. Like, I think it's like 70 plus 80 and 90, which is honestly okay. Very middling, so it can only take maybe 2 hits. It's not like a Bronzong, for God's sakes, but like, it's got some really cool tech pieces as well. Like, it gets access to like Knockoff, Icy Wind. It's like a more teched up version of Cresselia, but like way less bulky. Speed stat I think is 65, so it's able to outspeed other Trick Room mons whilst also staying around long enough to reverse the Trick Room, and so it's very interesting in that regard as to what it can do. It gets like Energy Ball and stuff, Psychic, Psyshock, Psychic Noise, which is all really good. Icy Winds, as I say, Yawn, which is cool. It gets Heal Bell, Safeguard, all those really cool moves, and Heal Pulse as well. So I said Heal Bell, I meant Heal Pulse. I think with 95 special attack as well, you can invest into its bulk and it's still like chipping away, doing non-zero damage. Like, you can have an uninvested mon chip away at something for like anywhere between 50 and like 30% relatively consistently, which is very good for a mon you don't invest into. The special attack could be a bit better, I suppose, but like, especially with its, I compare it to Aromatisse, which I really like as a Pokemon. The only difference is that Fairy's a decent offensive type as well as defensive type, and Psychic, well, is neither of those things. But it does have like Gen 3 move coverage, which is why you get all like the Energy Balls, the Charge Beams, and all that type of stuff as well. So yeah, Chimecho. I rate it. I do. I think I'm going to enjoy using Chimecho, and I'm going to enjoy using some really cool sets with it. Moving on, we go to our E tier, our second E tier. Now, E tiers aren't compulsory, but if you take an S tier, you are guaranteed to need at least one E tier. Take a second S tier in your points, you could guarantee to get at least one E tier. Now, we've already got Golem, but because we also got Illumise as well, we kind of are forced into another E tier. But like, okay, I'm just gonna bite the bullet. It's not the best, but like, hear me out. This is my hear me out moment. Let him cook. Toucannon. Not the best Pokemon in the world, but when you've got other E tiers, such as Chikorita and, I don't know, Spidops, like, I mean, and every other non-evolved Pokemon that doesn't provide some sort of support, like Fake Out or even Rage Powder or anything like that, like, it's not the worst. I kind of needed a normal type, and like, it's another ground immunity, which isn't weak to bug, or a ground resist that isn't weak to bug. In fact, it resists it. I kind of need a flying type, and like, sheer force isn't bad on this thing. Like 120 attack is good. It's the other stats are like 70-ish, 80-ish, and its speed is like 55, 60. So not amazing, but like sheer force, hurricane isn't awful. Heat wave, it gets some good fire coverage. It gets overheat, which is nice. It gets skill link with bullet seed and rock blast. That's pretty good. It gets your standard tailwind and your feather dances and like. It's a really colourful mon. At this point in the video, you're probably thinking, "Oh, he's coping hard." Shut up! I am not coping. This is a this is a direct point at you, Angel, if you're listening. Sit down. And Dunn, who is telling me all the time, Dunnican, oh, it's a 2-cannon though, it's awful, it's literally terrible, it can't even do anything in a low tier league. Well, you are correct, but we're going to try and persevere anyway. It gets sheer force gunk shot. It gets some cool fire coverage. Like, it's a flying type that gets fire and grass coverage. Like, that's cool. It's something. Anyway, that's our E tier out of the way. And lastly, you'll notice we haven't got a fire type yet. And that's because we are returning back to Kanto. We're getting the orange boy. We are getting as an Arcanine. I love Arcanine. I was umming and ahhing all the way to the end of the draft. Do I get Kanto Arcanine or do I get Hisuian? Like, Hisuian is very good. But I didn't need another rock type. I know Golem doesn't count. But I felt like the team really benefited from having a supportive, bulky mix attacker in Arcanine, and rather than the pure, really it's a pure offensive Arcanine. You know, like Hisuian Arcanine usually uses like Rock Head, Head Smash, and Flare Blitz, which is good. Don't get me wrong. I love that set. In fact, I think it's probably better than this Arcanine. But you're never incentivized to run Intimidate because you always want to run Rock Head, and so I've kind of done this so that I can use Arcanine with Intimidate or Flash Fire. The only other two abilities that are good on this thing, Justified is non-existent. And so it's like, I've already mentioned a few times earlier on where like some of my mons are good on the special side, not so good on the physical side. I want to be able to run like Will-O-Wisp, Arcanine. I want to be able to Snarl. I want to be able to be bulky and Morning Sun, Heat Waves, and just be really decent on the support side. It's still good on the offensive side. Like Terra Normal physical Arcanine with extreme speed is still a good bring. And so yeah, we got like a really good support mon for the team. Gives us that Flash Fire as a good switch in for Tink and for Rillaboom. Intimidate doesn't have to be used every week, which is nice. Now, if this was an Incineroar, that's the question. Yes, Incineroar would probably be better than Arcanine on this team, and that's because I want to not have Crawdaunt as my Dark type. However, Incineroar is off the table. It's already been drafted, so what can you do? But yeah, that's the last mon on my team. And like, I don't think it's an amazing team. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't look at this go thinking, oh, this has got so many deep modes, so many deep synergies. And like, it's obviously not the worst team either. Like, they're all individually decent statted, decent rolled mons. Like, you've got the special attackers in Gengar and Jolteon, kind of Arcanine. You've got the physical attackers in Rillaboom, Crawdaunt, and Golem, I guess. Arcanine and Komodo kind of mix into either of those two roles. You got your low tiers, which is basically my slow mode, which is the 2 cannon and golem. You got the 2 supports down the bottom in Chanaka and Lumise, but you've also got Tinkerton at the top. So like, it's very rotational there as to what type of support I'm looking for. Do I want the fast tailwind? Do I want the slow trick room? Do I want the aggressive little twink? Like, it's good. It's a good team with clear weaknesses. One of them being rock type, ground type, but I think it'll be a lot of fun. I do think it'll be a lot of fun. I really like every mon on this team except for Crawdon, and 2 cannon. But like, and I say that about Crawdon. Crawdon, unironically, is actually one of my favourite mons in Gen 3. Like, I love Corefish so much. I just need it to impress me here. Like, that's all. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough season. I don't think our odds are great. It's definitely something we have to try and play well every game for this colourful bunch. But we'll give it a go. And we'll see what the season has in store for us. It's 6 weeks, so every game counts. But we are doing top 8 out of 12, so if we can just get to the top 8, I'll be happy. I'll be happy with this squad if we get to the top 8. There's a lot of potential here. So yeah, that kind of concludes everything really that I wanted to say. That's my team. I think this has gone long enough. I don't know how long it's been. I've tried to fluff it out a little bit actually because I felt like I wasn't really giving much information on each of the mons. But yeah, hopefully you stayed to the end. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you follow along this season and keep updated with my team, how it goes. I'd appreciate that, and I hope you enjoy it as well. So it'll be fun either way. So yeah, see you in the games. Until next time, guys. Thanks for watching.